Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the goRIA live stream with Jeff and Chuck. I'm Jeff Benjamin, senior columnist with Investment News, and my partner is Chuck. Chuck, who are you?
I am Chuck Fala, the founder and CEO of Sovereign Financial Group and RIA aficionado.
All right. Hey, Chuck, what's happening this week? What's going on? What's topical?
Top of mind, I tell you what, some news came out recently. I believe you guys covered it with regards to Wells Fargo. And I believe they, as well as Bank of America / Merrill Lynch, are no longer disclosing the number of their advisors. What's up with that?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I mean, we pay attention to that here because we look at that as a measure of sort of the brokerage strength and the movement of brokers, throughout and cross brokerages and going independent and stuff like that. I think Morgan Stanley was also in that group of companies that Morgan Stanley and Bank of America, they are not disclosing their numbers anymore. And the Ryan Neal, our reporter here at Investment News, he reported that he said that the PR person at Wells Fargo emailed him confirming that and saying that they're kind of getting more in line with industry trends. I mean, it's all's fair in love and war, I guess, but this is kind of an interesting move, and I guess if it's an industry trend, we're going to maybe see more of it. I mean, it's to me, I think it's important wondering how the analysts, because things are moving, and obviously associated with advisors and brokers and headcounts, and if that's moving one way or another, it seems like something an analyst would be interested in. I don't know. What do you think, Chuck?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And, I tell you what, I've got 2 teenage kids, and, when they come home with some really good grades, they come right up to the home office like, "Dad, check this out. I got an A." Guess when that doesn't happen, right? When they get something other than an A.
Yeah.
Right. I don't get a whole lot of hearing the feet coming up the stairs and, opening up the door to my office and guess what, Dad, I got a D-. That doesn't happen often. Now, joking aside, what does this mean? I mean, this live stream, this podcast, this entire franchise is about going RIA. Those advisors are not leaving, right, the industry. I think they're changing channels, right? They're going to the RIA channel. Now, here's kind of the good news, bad news, the way I would see it. And I'm not an analyst, meaning like a Wall Street analyst covering the banks, but here's how I see it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In these big banks, and I think Wells Fargo is a great example of this. You also see this at Raymond James. You see this at LPL. They have a broker-dealer channel. They have a hybrid channel. And what's interesting about all 3 of those outfits is they now all have a custody-only channel. That services what? The RIA space. So I think if you would see the numbers that may be declining, we don't know, I guess, because they're not disclosing them anymore. But I think you'll see a lot of them are going to the RIA space. And I think it's the hope of those 3 in particular that I mentioned, and I'm sure others, that those advisors are finding themselves into the custody division of those respective firms. And I think that's brilliant, right? So if I'm running a big bank and you're paying attention, and I'm sure they are, to the trend of how many advisors are going into the RIA channel,
Right.
it's, do you want to have 100% of nothing or 1% of something? And, clearly, if you look at the numbers, the broker-dealer channel is the more profitable one. Custody margins are razor thin, right? Razor thin. But you need to have bulk. So I think if you would ask these banks from economic perspective, you'd want everyone on the broker-dealer channel because that is generally your most profitable channel. But if they're going to leave and go RIA, at least, and I commend them all for this, to get ahead of it, they've set up, all 3 of them have set up custody divisions that can then accept those advisors that are leaving the broker-dealer channel, but at least they'll stay within the ecosystem and use them for custody. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to see especially these brokerages that have custody offerings and operations platforms. It would be interesting to see how many of these breakaways are sticking with the kind of the mothership for their custody.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Just as a little heads up here in Ryan Neal's story, he did report that even though Wells Fargo didn't report the head count for the quarter ending just recently at the end of March, in January, Wells Fargo, that's the last time they reported a head count, they had 12,027 advisors, which was an increase of 16 from the previous quarter and a year-over-year decrease of 340. So, the trend is not a surprise, I think, to most people.
Absolutely. But I think that is a good part of the story, though. And I really do believe this, that you look out a generation for sure. What is that, 20 years, generally speaking, and perhaps less. I think the entire broker-dealer industry, and I'm going to specify this, as an advice delivery mechanism, right, is going to be a fraction of what it is today. Now, broker-dealers are still going to be around. You need IPOs. You need to have that institution to institutional trading. The do-it-yourself crowd will need broker-dealers. But the people looking for advice in 20 years, right, I don't think they're going to get advice on a commission basis. Not many. And these guys all know this, and they're being very smart about it, saying, look, the broker-dealer channel is changing rapidly, certainly for the advice delivery portion of it. And the smart ones, like the ones we're talking about here, in my opinion, they're getting ready for that by offering a custody solution. So they're like, okay, if you want to leave the broker-dealer, fine, but don't leave the mothership, stay in the family, right? So if you don't like, cousin Bob, go stay with, Aunt Julie or whoever, right? It's probably a horrible analogy, but
but it's an analogy.
It's an analogy, yeah.
And there you have it, a forecast from Chuck Fala, Nostradamus here, giving us what it's going to be like in 20 years when nobody will be holding our feet to the fire if we're right or wrong, right?
Yes, indeed. Very good. We should probably talk about the podcast a little bit. We got some really great feedback on that. The first one dropped last week. We had Phil Trueblood talking about his move to independence. The next one, I believe, is dropping today or tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be announced on social media and otherwise, but it's going to be dropping fairly soon for sure. So look out for that. I'm sure we'll give you guys a lot of notice on that. And I think, Jeff, you have a webcast coming up. Is that right? June 20th?
June 20th. We're still fleshing out the topic for that, but I think it's going to be along the lines of the flexibility that you get when it comes to fees and different ways. As if you're going to be a breakaway, you got all kinds of opportunities now. And let's look at some of the different ways that you can and how much you can charge.
I think that's great. I'm definitely going to tune into that myself as an audience member, but that's one of the nice things about the RIA space. If you're at a broker dealer, like here's the guardrails. The guardrails in the RIA space, they kind of go off camera, which is not to say it's the Wild West, but you just have a lot more flexibility. So we have the ability at our shop, we can bill AUM, we can bill a subscription, we can charge someone's credit card, a lot of stuff that maybe the brokerage firms are starting to get in tune with. But that's the nice thing about the RIA space is you have so much flexibility. So I'd be curious to see that topic myself. I think that's a good one.
Yeah. And as to anyone listening now, get in touch with myself or Chuck and let us know things you want to hear about regarding going RIA. When going independent, you got to have a lot of questions, and that's what we want this whole franchise from Investment News to be about, giving you that blueprint, that roadmap to basically answer all of your questions.
Absolutely. And again, as always, go to the Investment News website. On the upper right-hand side, you'll see a little tab that says Go RIA. You'll see replays. You'll see a lot of content, articles, all of which are not only talking about the RIA space, but very, very specifically and curated for what you would want to know if you're an advisor looking to make the move to independence to the RIA space. A lot of great content there. And again, to Jeff's point, just to echo that some, if you have any questions or any topics or any guests that you want us to bring on to the podcast or the webcast, hit us up on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, smoke signals, whatever you want to do, but let us know what you want to hear about. And we're a very nimble team here, and we can make that happen lickety split. And we would love to do that. Cool.
And one final point before we let you go, the next podcast drops April 26th. So look for that.
26th. Okay. April 26th is when it will be. Thank you very much, Angelica.